Why is it so hard to have a good, productive conversation about neurological differences, especially at work? Well, according to author and consultant Tim Goldstein, it's because we're building the entire conversation on a totally flawed foundation. So, let's dive into his fresh take on neurodiversity.
Now, Tim's story is pretty interesting. He was diagnosed with autism at 54, but here's the thing. He doesn't come at this like an academic. His background is in marketing. So he sees this whole thing as a communication problem. The product, neurodiversity, isn't selling because, frankly, the packaging is confusing and it pushes people away. He's basically on a mission to rebrand the entire conversation.
So, what's the real problem here? At its core, it's this us versus them model. The one that pits so-called normal people against divergent people. Tim argues this isn't just inaccurate, it's totally counterproductive. And it turns out the very language we're using is putting up the biggest walls.
Take the word neurodivergent. Sure, in a scientific paper, it's a useful, precise term. But when you're just talking to your manager, Tim calls it a PhD-sized word. It can make people feel like you're talking down to them, and boom, the conversation is over before it even starts. Any chance of a real connection is just gone.
And this is exactly what happens in our brains. There's this crucial psychological journey. When someone hears jargon they don't get, that first feeling is inadequacy, right? I feel stupid. But that feeling is uncomfortable, so our brain quickly flips a switch to a defensive reaction. You're an arrogant jerk for making me feel this way. The problem is no longer the communication gap, the problem is you. And that's a recipe for conflict, not understanding.
And if you dig into the word itself, it's just loaded with negative baggage. The prefix D literally means to separate. The root verge means to stray or turn away. So subconsciously, the word itself is telling us that someone is deviating from the one single correct path. It's got the whole us versus them idea baked right into it.
So to fix all this, Tim proposes a totally new way to think about it, a new foundation he calls the neurocloud. And the inspiration is kind of quirky. He pictures one of those glass boxes at a state fair, where they blow dollar bills all around and you have to grab them. It's that image of everything swirling together in one chaotic, interconnected system.
This new model has 3 simple but really powerful rules. Rule 1, everyone is in the cloud. There's no normal group standing on the outside looking in. We're all in it. 2, the cloud is made of universal human traits that we all share, things like pattern recognition or sensory sensitivity. There are no autism traits, just human traits. And 3, our differences don't come from having different traits, they come from the intensity of those traits.
And here's the perfect analogy to help you picture it. Think of a giant audio mixing board, like in a recording studio. Every single human trait has its own slider. Now, each one of us has a totally unique combination of settings for those sliders. Some of ours are pushed way up to 10, others are pulled all the way down to 1. And that unique setting, that's our individual cognitive profile.
Okay, check out this example because this is where it really clicks. You've got the exact same human trait, a high-intensity, deep, passionate focus on a specific subject. But look at the labels we use. For an autistic person, we pathologize it. We call it a symptom of their condition. For a sports fan, we celebrate it. We call them an enthusiast. It is the exact same trait, just seen through 2 completely different and biased lenses.
So, if we're going to have a whole new model like the neurocloud, it just makes sense that we need some new words to go with it. A vocabulary that's actually descriptive and not judgmental, one that can replace that old broken binary.
All right, so instead of neurodivergent, Tim suggests the term neurodistinct. And this connects right back to that mixing board. A neurodistinct person is someone with a spiky profile. They've got some sliders cranked up to 10 and others pulled way down to 1. Their profile is distinct because of these extreme highs and lows.
And for that group we used to call neurotypical, the new term is neurouniform. And again, you see how it's just descriptive? Their trait profile is more, uniform. The sliders on their mixing board are all hanging out in a much narrower, less extreme band. The highs aren't quite as high, and the lows aren't quite as low.
And this table just sums it all up perfectly. We're shifting from a judgmental binary, normal versus abnormal, to a descriptive pairing. We're getting away from this whole us versus them mentality and moving toward the idea that we are all in the neurocloud together, we just have different profiles. It completely reframes the whole conversation.
But hang on, because this is where the model gets really interesting. Tim realized there was this massive logical contradiction in how we use the word neurotypical. And figuring that out, it changes everything. So here's the question that just breaks the old model. Think about it. We all agree that the diagnostic criteria for something like autism are fixed. They don't change whether you're in Japan or Germany. But the rules for neurotypical behavior, they change dramatically. They change from country to country. They even change from company to company. The neurotypical way to act at Google is not the same as at Oracle. So, if the standard is that flexible, how can it possibly be a fixed type of brain wiring?
And this, right here, is the core revelation. Neurotypical isn't a type of brain. It's not a neurotype at all. It is a social consensus. It's just the unwritten rules of a specific group in a specific place, a culture, a company, a team. It's just an agreement on the right way to act in that context. So what that gives us is this complete three-part framework. First, you have your internal wiring. Your brain is either neurouniform or neurodistinct. Then you have the external environment. That's the social consensus, the unwritten rules. And finally, you have your action, which is your ability or even your willingness to conform to that consensus. For a lot of neurodistinct people, that's what we call masking.
Okay, so, cool model, new words, so what? Why does any of this actually matter? What are the real-world implications for our jobs and our daily lives?
Well, for one thing, it helps us understand stress in a whole new way. Stress is the great equalizer. When a person who's typically neurouniform is under extreme pressure, their ability to conform to those social rules can just fall apart. Their normally uniform profile can suddenly look very, very spiky. They might get super rigid about rules or get distracted by everything. Stress shows us just how fluid that line between profiles can really be.
And this leads to an even bigger idea, something beyond just being neurodiverse. The future, Tim argues, is neuroversal,
a concept by Dr. Lutza Ireland
that recognizes that our technology, and especially artificial intelligence, are really just extensions of our own minds. And guess what? These AIs have their own neurotypes and their own styles of interaction.
Now, when we really embrace that, the goal changes completely. This stops being a niche HR topic about accommodating people. It becomes a core strategy for 21st century productivity. The new goal is, how do we optimize the interactions between all forms of intelligence, human to human and human to AI?
And what this all means is that we have to finally, once and for all, leave behind that old broken question. This whole us versus them mindset of how do we fix those people? It's a dead end. It gets us nowhere.
And we have to replace it with this one, a much more powerful and much more useful question. What is the most effective way to interact with this specific intelligence to get the best result? And you see how empowering that is? It applies to your neurodistinct colleague, to your neurouniform boss, and yeah, even to the AI you use to write your emails. It's a question that focuses on getting the best out of everyone, and it all starts with having a language that finally lets us have that conversation.